Hello and welcome back to Mandibil. As you can see, I have changed the setup a bit here. I'm actually sitting at my old IBM desktop PC, which is at least 15 years old, and I have tried to hook up my old webcam and installing Streamlabs desktop software, trying to get it rolling just as on my MacBook, because I have a bit of trouble with my MacBook lately. It has, well, let's just say it behaves strangely, and I have not been able to either get support to fix it or, save up the money. I potentially need to fix it, right? So that's a bit of a sad story with my Apple product there, which basically I might make a video on. I'm quite unsatisfied with how Apple seems to be approaching the idea of a customer these days, right? That's a different story. It's been a while since I've been doing some serious philosophy videos, so I guess you probably starved from not hearing my voice and my clear thinking on my video channel, on my YouTube channel, and on your stream or your what's it called, on your playlist. You know what I mean, right? And it takes a while for me to get back into. I've been off the track for a while, so I need to get back with my language and so on, right? I follow a few philosophers online and YouTube who I find to be sort of, let's say, on the right track, at least according to my standards, but may not, be fully formed yet. Oh, how you want to put it, right? And excuse me if I have tried to set up the sound quality here as well as I can. I'm still trying to figure out how it will work best, right? Audio levels and all that. So bear with me, please, right? And this guy, Nathan Hawkins, I've used him before in one of my videos, and combining it with my own philosophy and Bernardo Kastrup and so on. And he has made a critique in that video, I think, actually, of Bernardo Kastrup and his idealism and so on, right? So apparently, Dr. Nathan Hawkins, also known as absolute philosophy. I'm not particularly fond of the idea of absolute philosophy. It's like, I found the solution. I have to force feed it to you, right? And why is it necessary to tell me he's a doctor, right? Oh, I have studied philosophy on Oxford and Cambridge. Yes, so I must be, it's an argument from authority, right? The same goes for Bernardo Kastrup for that matter. So he's sort of in the same ballpark as Bernardo Kastrup, but still not. He's more hardcore analytic in the vein of Bertrand Russell or something like that, as far as I can understand, right? But this might be quite a good video for me to sort of get back on the track with discussing philosophy. I'm actually working on a presentation on time, space, dimension, and cognition, sort of a big one, right? So I had a few ideas that sort of dawned on me, and I actually tried to make a handheld video on it in my car recently, and then it fucked up, and I thought maybe I should make a real good video with presentation and all that. So expect that to come up in not too far-flung future, right? But he has made a list of the contents here, and of course an introduction, then truth bearers and truth makers. And the nature of truth bearers, propositions and meanings, Platonism, conceptualism, facts and truth makers, ontological realism, a relaxed alternative, how to count things, bring it all together. A relaxed alternative is like, hey dude, man, relax, man. So it's about truth. It's a case for idealism. So truth, facts, and existence. I don't know why that necessarily has to do with idealism, but I guess it's from an idealist kind of foundation. And as usual, I will sort of comment from my standpoint of philosophy, and the terms used, I will explain if I diverge in my terms and the way I use the similar terms as he potentially uses, right? And explain why, as I usually do, why I think it's good or bad, or it should be different, and how do I approach it, and why do I do that, and so on, right? So it's sort of basically a reflection video where I use his video as a stepstone to discuss things, and even also sort of react and criticize if I think something is sort of misguided by him, right? So, but let me start out by saying that I'm not into, bashing anybody, or I'm not trying to ditch anybody or destroy their philosophy or anything. So I am absolutely 100% for open discourse on philosophy, in the sense that my approach to philosophy, and I repeat that for God knows what time, right? That philosophy is your thinking about how you think, right? That might even in itself be a circular argument, but let's stick to that, right? So philosophy, in my opinion, is not about telling somebody else about how they should think. You could say, well, then why are we doing this? Well, in my opinion, I'm here to tell you that you should think for yourself, right? I don't like the idea of authority. I don't like the idea of philosopher kings. I don't like the idea of academic philosophers. I am a doctor and therefore I have to tell you how to think, right? So it's sort of, there's a balance in there somewhere where it has to be I don't like the lecturing thing, right? And usually what is a problem is that when somebody sort of, I guess you can make the whole one video that covers all your philosophy from A to Z, but when do we get that video that sort of says, okay, now I'm going to start with the starting point, right? I'm going to start with the beginning of my philosophy. It's fine that makes them, okay, now I'm going to discuss this particular down the road of philosophy kind of aspect. Fine. But at some point you might want to go down and say, okay, this is my starting point. There's no thinking before this, right? My philosophy starts here. You never see that. The closest thing is possibly Bernardo Kastrup, but his is a bunch of baloney, right? As I criticized in a few videos recently, or within the last few months, let's say, right? Late last year or early this year, I think, right? This year is 2024. Okay, so it's like, so what do you take for granted, and what are you discussing, right? All these videos always take something for granted, and even I do that, of course, right? Because I'm not always starting from the starting point. But I have made sure that recently I have made some videos where I actually try to describe what my starting point is, my reduction base of my ontology, right? So if I sort of dig down into various presenters' philosophy, I never find that starting point. Or if there is some approach to a starting point, it gets more and more fluffy. It gets sort of circular, and it's given to me, or this is an axiom, and therefore I can do this. And it's not coherent, right? Because there's certain aspects that usually I find to be more foundational, that which they point to as being foundational. Now, I don't think I saw the beginnings of this, and I was listening with sort of half an ear, right, prior to this. So he's starting sort of midstream, you could say. He's starting somewhere, and I'm going to explain something here. And that point I'm starting with, I'm taking some shit for granted, right? And maybe that's one of the criticism I'm going to make, right? Okay, so bear with me with the audio levels. If it's fucked up, well, Let me take that as a learning curve here, and then possibly improve it in the next one, right? Okay. Another fun before we go. These timestamps here, if I remember myself correctly, these are possibly going to be 10 videos, right? So I'm going to, take it apart, right? Okay. Let's hit it.
Tractatus. Wittgenstein says, in the opening of the Tractatus, Wittgenstein says that the world is the totality of facts, not of things.
And that's what I mean by, okay, so what are we talking about? Totality, the world, facts, and things, right? So you're just, basically you're thrown 4 or 5 sort of linguistic concepts or whatever you want to call it in your face. So like that, right? Okay, so let me throw around these terms is sort of the academic approach, right?
There is the fact that you are watching this video. The fact that the sky is blue.
Is that a fact? What entails a fact, right? I'm watching this video. You don't know if anybody's watching, and I don't know if there's something other than my experience of whatever the screen is, right? What entails a fact? So you are appealing to discussing what is meant by a fact, but you're using facts as explanation, or at least, throwing up some rhetorical questions, at least, right? That entails me understanding what a fact is. Well, if you take it for granted that me sitting here is a fact, why do we need to explain it? So, and one thing I keep, in my philosophy, right? I don't like to mix categories. If I say this is a kind of a fact, then if there's something over here that seems to be of a different category, it cannot be a fact then, right? I mean, if you say that's an elephant, and you say that is a fact, right? I would say that's likely going to be a conclusion of this kind of use of the term fact. If you point and say that's an elephant, and you experience elephant, you would probably say it's a fact there's an elephant, right? But me watching a video, is that a fact? Because watching a video is not of the same kind as elephant, is it? And if you say me watching a video is a fact, then elephant cannot be fact, because it's a different category. Watching a video is not the same category as elephant. But that's where all these sort of philosophers, they go bananas, because they start to mix all sorts of categories. Then all of a sudden physics is knowledge and fact, and various very diverse categories of different categories all of a sudden can all be fact. That doesn't work for me, right? If you categorize something as fact and you have more than one category in your ontology, so to say, then all other categories cannot be facts, in my opinion. Or you have to explain how you do that, right? You can't just stick labels here and there as you see fit, right? That doesn't work for me, at least.
Blue. The fact that electrons have negative charge and so forth.
The fact that, how do you know about electrons? How do you know that spin or whatever you say, or charge or whatever, right? How do you know about, how do you get to that being a fact? I'm not experiencing any electrons, right? I've heard about electrons, but I've not experienced any, right? Why is that a fact? Isn't that a theory? How can a theory be a fact if you potentially need some facts in order to establish a theory? Then you can't turn it around and say, now that theory has become a fact, right? So this is the misgivings of, modern academia. They don't know what they're talking about, right? But it takes a very little effort to take this apart, in my opinion.
If you put all these facts together, then, according to Wittgenstein,
all these facts together. Oh, so if I read something in a book, somebody says, there are electrons, and they have spin up and spin down. Oh my God, I have a fact now. Somebody gave me a fact. Is that how it works? How does that work? Oh, somebody has experienced Santa Claus. Now Santa Claus is a fact. Is that okay? Somebody wrote three-legged unicorn. Therefore, three-legged unicorn is a fact. Or what? No, they didn't say, hey, I did science. But that doesn't make it a fact just because you use a magical, term called science. That doesn't. It might be fact to those who did that particular science, if it's to be trusted or so, whatever how you want to approach it. But it's not to you. You read something in a book or saw a video or heard this audio book. That doesn't make it a fact to you. If I'm experiencing elephant there, that's different. If that's a fact, that's different from you telling me I'm experiencing an elephant. That's not the same, right? So if you're telling me that what you're telling me is a fact, then elephant can't be a fact. If I experience elephant out there, then I have to have facts through YouTube, right? And if that is a fact out there, the elephant, it's a different category than me listening to the word elephant, right? Then the word elephant, however it approaches to me through a video or through a text or through an audiobook or whatever, is not a fact. Because it's a different category, right? Is that very difficult to understand? Or are we just confused on a higher level, right?
You get the world. Now, I believe there are good reasons to think that facts...
Well, belief is not something I want to, spend my time on, right? Whatever you believe, I believe there are good arguments. Okay. So what? That doesn't make any argument stronger or weaker or better that you believe in it, right?
Are in the mind. If I'm right about this, and if Wittgenstein is right about facts...
Yeah, if I'm right, that doesn't make you right. That you say if I'm right. You can never... So as long as you have an if, you don't have anything. If there's a guy outside my door handing me $1 million, right? I will be a millionaire. Yeah. But as long as there's no man with $1 million, right? I'm not a millionaire. So if I'm right, as soon as people start to say if, it's in a hypothetical and it stops there. That's the stopping point of an ontology, right? Or you're going into theorizing, which is basically science. Well, how would you figure it out? Well, I have to do some, empiricism and go outside my door and look for the guy with $1 million, right? So, and also this mix-up between science and philosophy, I don't think most academics understand the difference. Science is basing some guesswork on what might be the case, based on observation, right? But you can't use that in philosophy, because philosophy is foundational to get to the point where you can make this theorization, right? You can't create a theory about that which you're going to use to create scientific theories. So this if thing is dangerous territory, right? If I'm right. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, he's going to be just jumping in to say, okay, if I'm right, now I'm actually creating an if. Now I'm going to pretend it's actually the case, as if that created, that kind of reasoning, hypotheticals, created the ability to go there. It doesn't. An if statement is not philosophy, right?
Constituting the world, then the world itself is in the mind. This is a view called idealism.
The world, so now there's a new category, the world, right? There were facts and things, and now there's world and mind. If they are the same categories or they're overlappings, you should be very careful to explain the understanding of these terms, because they sound to be very foundational. They usually are when people use these terms, right? What is a thing? What is a fact? What is a mind? And what is a world? And how are they combined? Are there overlappings? Are some part of the world a part of mind, or mind a part of world? And the world is in mind, does that mean that there's only one world? Are you then solipsist, or what does it mean that you're talking to your experiences now? Or are you expecting your talk to be directed towards something outside your particular mind? Because if you say there's mind and you're an idealist, you would probably think that everything is mind. Whatever you can come up with and talk about is basically at the foundation some kind of mind, whatever that actually is. And I think it's a stupid argument, but that's another story. I might get to that later, right? But if you say there's something outside mind, then what is that? What Bernardo Kastrup says, he said that's also mind. So this way he sort of argues himself away from, the hard problem and dualism and all that, right? So it's like it's the same old way people argue in philosophy. They hint at something, but they don't define anything. It's just a few, 4 or 5 or 6 terms thrown up and then blah, 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 fixed, right? That's not good enough for me, right?
And I believe idealism to be the correct view of reality.
So now idealism is a particular kind of philosophy, then, in his mind, okay, or in his understanding, right? Then, what was the term he used? I'll just rewind a bit.
Idealism. And I believe idealism to be the correct...
Yeah, there's again the term belief. What is that? Belief is just, right? Belief, what is that? Give me some fucking arguments, right? Give me an understanding, describe your experience and how you get to A, B, and C in your structure of your philosophy, right?
View of reality. This video...
A view of reality. Okay. Now there's also reality, right? Maybe I should even make a list of terms used here, right? And maybe I should. How many terms? And I'll just, for now, I'll just make these list of these terms used, right? And maybe add them to the picture, to the desktop presentation here in the next one. Let's see. Okay, we had facts, we have things, we have world, we have mind. Let me rewind a bit here, sorry about that.
Video itself is in the mind. This is constituting the world, then the world itself is in the mind. This is a view called idealism. And
Okay, so a view can, for instance, be idealism. So that's a view. That's not apparently a philosophy. That's sort of a weak way of arguing presenting it, right?
I believe idealism to be the correct view of reality.
So a view can be correct and incorrect. I added that idea of correct and incorrect. I mean, if it can be correct, it can also be incorrect, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't need to describe it as being correct. So it's opposed to those that are incorrect, implicitly, right?
This video presents my idealism to be the correct view of reality. This video...
Okay, so there it is. Now we have reality also, right? So these are all terms that have been thrown into the fray here, right? Facts, things, world, mind, and reality. Now, he said he had a view of reality. Well, if there is reality, and you're talking about a view of reality, then you're saying that view is correct. But the view of reality is not reality. It's a view of reality. So, if that what you're talking about is your mental experience, for lack of a better term, that view you are having is particular to you, and you don't have access to that which you're trying to view. Otherwise, you will be talking about that is reality, rather than the view of reality, right? It's blurring the lines between the photograph of the moon and the actual moon to, transform it into, or transpose it. What would it be? What's the term? Transpose it into another a metaphor and an analogy, right? Well, the view of reality is not reality. So why does your view need to be correct and incorrect? What does that matter if reality is that which you're actually going for? Or aren't you going for reality, just a view of reality? And what entails a view? Because if you're saying the correct view is idealism, then idealism is a view of reality. It's a particular kind of view. So there are other views that are not idealism, that are also views of reality, but they're just incorrect according to your standard. Well, so you created a story that you are creating a view of reality. So that which is your view is disconnected from that which it actually tries or implicitly attempts to describe, which is in this case reality, and the facts and the things and the world and the mind and so on, right? So this seems to be something that approaches materialism, just in other terms, using other terms, right? A view of reality is the materialist saying, I am experiencing that which is outside my experience. If I'm experiencing cow, that cow is outside my mind. Well, how can it be if you're experiencing it? And if it's outside your mind, then you can't experience it, right? That which you're referring to must be an experience, but then it can't be outside your mind. If mind is that which entails your experiences. So if you experience it, that cow is in your mind. It's not outside your mind, right? You can say that, okay, that cow represents something outside my mind. But what makes you say that? If you only ever have experienced cows and, trees and water as a part of your mental experience, then all of it must be in your mind. And you actually don't have any access to something beyond mind if there's something beyond your mind, right? I'm not saying you can't fabulate about it, but you can never get to it because it has to be an experience. As long as it's an experience, it's a part of your mind. Then it's not outside your mind, is it? Right? You can't be both places at once. Otherwise, then we lose all contact with what the hell we're doing, right?
Presents my case. I'll begin with a consideration of the nature of truth and move on to draw conclusion.
Okay, so now we have truth, right? Why do we need truth? The nature of truth, not just truth, but the nature of what is that? If you have a view of something, why do we need to talk about? I'm not saying we don't, but in my opinion, truth is a part of epistemology. What it means to know something. You need to have settled what you mean by knowing in order to have some truth. Because truth is an expression or a comparison, in my opinion, between what you claim to know and the statement you make about it. If I say, sort of halfway Aristotelian, right? If I say that's an elephant, well, it's true if I'm experiencing elephant. I made a statement about my experience. If the cognitive content of my statement matches the cognition I'm having in that particular, point in space that I'm directing my gaze at, then that statement is true. Because I stated that's an elephant and I'm experiencing elephant. Therefore, the statement is true. But only I know that because I'm the only one having my experience. Right? If I made that statement and somebody else listened to the statement, he couldn't know if it's true to me. He could only know if it's true to him, right? Or no, it's not. He could only compare it to his knowledge of that particular cognition that I'm expressing. I'm proposing, you could say, proposing. When you're proposing knowledge, right? Otherwise, why the hell would you propose it? Maybe that's not the best argument, but let's stay there, right? So I'm pointing and say that's an elephant. Well, he can know if I'm lying, right? It would be sort of unlikely that if somebody else, and that guy points his gaze in that direction and he experiences it, and he doesn't, and he also experiences elephant. It would be weird if I didn't experience an elephant and I pointed and he turned his gaze and he saw an elephant. but I was not experiencing elephant. And I didn't provoke any need to lie or anything like that. Then it would be highly unlikely that the guy who proposed the elephant was not experiencing elephant if I turned my eye and I experienced an elephant in that particular direction, right? And you're taking out of the equation that I might look in a different direction that he's pointing and there's an elephant over there and right? But if let's say it's that kind of possibly be it's the flat savannah and there's nothing but that fucking elephant and flat land, right? That's the propositional truth. That's the only way you can get to a functional kind of truth, right? So it's like I'm not sure where he's trying to go with this, right?
About the nature of existence. Where I'll end up is...
Okay, so nature of existence. Now we have a new term, right? He just keep throwing terms up, right? Existence, right? And truth, and not only truth, but the nature of truth. Does truth have a nature? He's implying it. He hasn't explained why truth has a nature. Does existence have a nature? Does reality have a nature? Does mind have a nature? Does world, things, facts have a nature? And does a view have a nature? Does idealism have a nature, right? Idealism is kind of a view. So it's just, as I said in the beginning, when people philosophize, they throw all sorts of terms up in the air. And I know that if you're not starting with the foundations, you kind of have to do this, right? But then I would like to at some point, okay, Mr. Nathan Hawkins, wasn't that the name, right? When are we going to get the foundations here, right? Do you think this is foundational philosophy? It can't be, man. You basically, if you don't have a foundation where you start, that's where everything starts. Even your language and your use of terms, right? You're describing your experience as a starting point. It can't be anything else. You have to start with your experience. You can't start with something else and then get to your experience. That is putting the cart before the horse, right? For instance, the idea of an external world must have derived because you have an experience. And then you say, well, there might be something beyond my experience. There might be an external world. Can I refute that? Maybe I can't. But that doesn't make it so. But you started to think about that potential external world because you have an experience, right? So that is foundational. So how do you dig down and find the starting point of your philosophy there? Well, you start by defining something as the starting point, and then you explain everything from that, in one way or another. How could it be structured otherwise? Otherwise, you have to rely on some kind of authority telling you what is meant by fact, and meant by thing, meant by world, meant by mind, reality, existence, truth, and so on. Then it's about some authority telling you this is the words you're going to use. Then I don't trust your philosophy. Because then you're just a slave to somebody else's philosophy, right?
Is with the claim that facts are true thoughts. Everything that exists...
Facts are true thoughts. So now we have thoughts also, right? Okay, so he made facts equals true thoughts. It resembles a bit what I talked about with the elephant and the proposition, right? But I'm not sure he's there. I think it's misgiven this, right?
Exists in facts. So to exist means nothing more than to be a constituent in a true thought.
Okay, I need to back up a bit here.
Everything that exists in facts.
Everything that exists in facts. That seems to be linguistic mumbo-jumbo, in my opinion. I mean, you have to start with your experience, as I say. If you think about this long enough, I would say you can't get around this. So it has to start with your experience. You can't say there's a fact, and I am adding my experience to that fact. No, you have to start with an experience and then label some part of that experience, if not all of it. That would be weird, right? Some part of it or some aspect of your experience as that is a fact, or that is what can be a fact if I'm experiencing it. You could also say that if I experienced an elephant, that would be a fact to me, right? You could express it that way. As soon as the elephant disappears, doesn't mean that the idea of facts disappears, right? So that's the sort of the abstract level of thinking, that you are not thinking in the moment only. You are generalizing your thinking to encompass all possibilities, in a sense, you could say, right? But I'm not comfortable with that, what he just said there. Let's take it once again.
Thoughts. Everything that exists in facts. So to
I can't. So an elephant exists. If I experience an elephant, that exists in a fact. What does that mean? You didn't explain what it means to exist, right? You need to explain first what it means to exist. Maybe he did, but I overheard it, right? So bear with me, right? But as far as I remember, he didn't explain what it means to exist. If I say that's an elephant, does the elephant exist? You could say that's a kind of existence. But okay, fair enough. I mean, then that existence is a fact to me that I can propose, because that fact is then knowledge to me, right? But could something exist that is not a fact, so that existence is broader than facts? So all that exists has to be confined into a fact, or all the facts, all the existence that can be a fact, all existence must be some kind of fact. But then you're sort of throwing around the terms, sort of, okay, I have this idea with this term being used, and there's another term here, I have to force them together somehow. That's what it sounds like. It seems it's a linguistic game more than a structured, built philosophy, grounded philosophy, on top of which you build the next level and the next level with these definitions and these definitions based on the prior philosophy and so on. You're just sort of grabbing various terms and then sort of banging them together and say all existence is in a fact. I'm not getting any wiser there, right?
To exist means nothing more than to be a constituent in a true thought.
So, okay, so because facts are true thoughts, I have to hear it again.
Exist means nothing more than to be a constituent in a true thought.
So something that exists, a fact can be is true thoughts which can constituted of existences. Let me call it constituted of existences. Okay, so facts are the same as true thoughts, and true thoughts are constituted of existences. That's not a word, but okay. I'm not saying I agree, but I'm just trying to, get my head around this, right?
Everything, therefore, is in thought, and existence itself comes from truth. Now, I can't promise this argument will be a simple one or a short one, but I can promise to do my best to make it as understandable as possible, and I'm going to go step by step as clearly and carefully as I can. I hope it will be quite a ride, so grab your brains, pour yourself a strong coffee, and let's go.
This is a very weak coffee.
I'm going to start with one of the earliest definitions of truth made by Aristotle, who says, to say of what is that it is not, or of what is not that it is false. While to say of what is that it is, and of what is not that it is not, is true.
Okay. These old expressions of philosophy from the time of Aristotle are not particularly helpful to me. they have to be interpreted, and then you can possibly lay any interpretation or most interpretation into it that you want. And I don't think necessarily Aristotle has been well understood at all times. And what he means is it linguistic way of expressing to say that it is. So is he talking about saying it? Is he talking about proposition? Or is it a necessary way for him to express it, or the custom they had about expressing these kind of arguments, that he uses the term say, or in translation from Old Greek and so on. So if we have to take that on face value, to say of what it is that it is not, to say of what is that it is not, is false. No, I would say that's lying, right? If you say that's an elephant but it's a beaver, you're lying. But if you say that's not an elephant and there isn't an elephant, well, it's not true, but it's not correct proposition, right? You can say that's not an elephant there, right? And you can say it, but it's nonsense. There's a gazillion things that are not there in the garden outside my window, right? There's not a beaver in my hand. There's not a soft ice in my hand. There's not a pizza in my hand. There's not a, in my hand. There's a lot of things that are not in my hand. But if I say that's an elephant, that's it. It's either elephant or it's not elephant then, right? So this is more like, if you're taking at face value this translation of Aristotle's metaphysics, to say that it's true, to say that is, to say of what is that it is not, what is, or of what is not that it is false. So if you say the opposite of what is the case, it's false, right? If you say that's not an elephant and it's an elephant, it's false. Yeah, but why would you say that? And do you need to say it in order to be true or false? If I'm experiencing, I'm not, let's say I'm a mute person, right? I'm experiencing elephant. I'm not mute, but let's thought experiment, right? I'm experiencing elephant out there in the garden, but I'm not stating it, right? Is it not true because I'm not stating it? If I'm, as long as I don't say that's an elephant, it's not true. Or if I say that's not an elephant, it's false. Is it not true or false if I don't express it? And why do I need to make some sounds? What about a community of mute people? Can't they have truths and false? True or false? It's just so that the term say is important in this statement from Aristotle, right? Why would that, if I'm alone on an island, let's say I fell down like Tom Hanks into the deserted island, if I see a coconut, can't I eat it before I say that's a coconut? And I say that's true because it's a coconut. Now I can eat it. This is stupid, right? As long as I experience coconut, it's sort of true to me without the proposition. So I don't have to say what is true or not for it to be true or false, right? If I'm alone, I don't care about false because I'm not expressing anything, right? I only care what is. I don't care about true or false. If there's elephant, I am experiencing elephant. I don't need to say, well, that's a true elephant, right? I don't even need to think it. I'm just there, right? So what is this game of true or false? Is it more about propositions and potential lying, right? If a politician says, oh, I'm going to give you some money if you vote for me, right? You're going to get academics and a doctor, a PhD of philosophy, right? What you're talking about is sufficiently foundational for me to say, why do you care about this true thing? because that doesn't matter. If you're sitting alone on the island and trying to get to the core of things, you don't need to state any true or false, right? You don't even need to think about it. You actually don't need true or false. Only if, Tom Hanks or, Tom Cruise, he falls down with his Maverick airplane there, right? And there are two of you, right? And you have to say, okay, that elephant over there, we might hunt that elephant, but I want to make sure that we both experience that elephant. Do you see an elephant there? And Tom Cruise says, yes, I see an elephant, and I also see an elephant. Okay, let's agree to agree, right? That's where you need true and false and propositions and so on. Otherwise you don't need it. But you can know that elephant all on your own without any kind of proposition or true or false, right? Okay, I think I will leave it here. This is the next truth bearers and truth makers. This is very academic. He's obviously trained in using particular terms, and he's using the lingo of somebody who's been trained in philosophy to use particular terms, right? Truth bearers and truth makers, and this is very much British philosophy. No wonder, right? Surprise, surprise. And there's something about frege down here, which is, and then we're going to, and he mentioned, Wittgenstein, and he's probably going to mention Russell and so on. It's the same story with the British philosophers. They have all been trained in, it's a British philosopher. So, and you're in Cambridge or Oxford, so you need to understand. They're not hearing much about maybe Kierkegaard, right? But if you were in a Danish, university, you will probably hear a lot about Kierkegaard because he's Danish. He's from the same tax farm, right? So it must be interesting philosophy. Okay, I think that's enough with this one. I'll take the next truth bearers and truth makers to the next part. See you there.